Hello and welcome back to Series 8 of The Public Eye, a 5-part series of podcasts brought to you by Granite Exchange. I'll be your host, Sarah Travers, and throughout this series I'll be speaking with local entrepreneurs and business owners to learn more about how these companies have come to be, to gain insight into their growth and find out how they continue to innovate. So wherever you get your podcasts from, remember to keep an eye out for all new episodes and subscribe to stay up to date. Today I'm joined by Stephen Magorrian, Managing Director of the Horatio Group. Before we begin, I'm going to give you a little bit of background. Stephen Magorrian is a well-known drinks industry veteran who began his working life with the Belfast Telegraph as an assistant accountant and progressed there before moving to Guinness Northern Ireland as company accountant in 1988. Since then, he's enjoyed numerous roles throughout his career before establishing the Horatio Group in 2013 and being appointed Managing Director. The Horatio Group now consists of 4 separate companies: the Northern Whig and Horatio Todd's in Belfast, Denvers of Downpatrick, and Horatio Taverns, which is an outside event company. Now, the Northern Whig, you'll probably know it, situated at the entrance to the Cathedral Quarter, provides a memorable dining and drinking experience right in the heart of Belfast, whereas Horatio Todd's is an award-winning, comfortable and welcoming local bar and restaurant, providing quality drinks, food and entertainment, situated in Ballyhackamore in East Belfast. Denvers of Downpatrick was established actually way back in 1642. It's steeped in history and is the perfect setting for a relaxing break in the heart of Downpatrick. Denvers has now got 15 ensuite rooms, as well as bars, a restaurant and function rooms. And finally, through Horatio Taverns, the Horatio Group are also a provider of outdoor bars in Northern Ireland. They've developed a professional, trusted and proven track record, and they successfully provide numerous bars at many elite events, such as the Balmoral Show. So, Stephen, you are very welcome to the Public Eye podcast.
Thank you. It's lovely to be here.
So congratulations on building such a wonderful business and businesses and career. You started as an accountant, so you've come a long way.
Yeah, and it wasn't really planned to change. I was probably my best subject in school was maths, and so I thought accountancy was the right way to go, and that's where I started. I started as an accountant. And then I went to the Belfast Telegraph as an accountant, which was probably my first real job. And then from there I went to Guinness as company accountant. And whilst in Guinness, I moved more into the business side of things. Again, not planned, as I told you, but it's probably what was destined for me. But accountancy's been great. It gives me a background. It gives me a good understanding of business. And it helps me think, at least I think that way, I think logically.
And sometimes everything happens for a reason, doesn't it? You start somewhere, you get new skills and then you move on. And I'm sure even moving to the likes of Guinness must have been an incredible experience and a great place to learn.
Well, they were all great places to learn. And it was a real coincidence in a way, because I thought I would have progressed in the Belfast Telegraph, and a job came up above the rank that I was at that time, and I was told I wasn't allowed to apply for it because I was too young. So I said, well, I'm going to leave, and they said, you won't get a better job than this, and I got the job in Guinness, which was excellent. And when in Guinness, again, luck I suppose, but the managing director at the time was a gentleman by the name of John Lavery, who was an icon at the time, and he took me under his wing and got me involved in things probably quicker than I should have been. And that's how I sort of progressed through Guinness then.
So tell us then, when you moved into, okay, I'm going to take the plunge and I'm going to take on somewhere myself.
Well, even that wasn't planned.
Nothing ever.
Because
really.
I actually saw my career in Guinness, to be honest. And then I ended up, I started as company accountant at Guinness, and then I worked there for 15 years in various roles. I worked for a while in Irish pubs in Europe. I then set up the loans department. And then, because loans became such a big part of sales, and I ended up being asked to take on a sales manager's role, which I'd never done in my life. But I thought, well, why not? Then I ended up as sales director. And then Guinness Northern Ireland merged into Diageo Ireland. So all the directorships jobs were made redundant. So I was offered a job in Dublin, which I didn't like. I felt it was kind of made up job, or a year in Japan, restructuring the sales force in Japan. but I couldn't get them to pay me enough to go to Japan, or my redundancy. So I took my redundancy, and then went into Botanic Inns with a view to hopefully buying over Botanic Inns. It got sold. Unfortunately, the two guys from Clare who come up and offered a big price.
Right.
This is a long story, Sarah, but anyway.
Were you even in the running for the Botanicans at the time? Or?
Well, it was strange. I was actually working on it, and the idea was to do a management buyout, but then this offer came in from the side, which was much higher than what we had been talking. So the owner at the time, Jazz, decided he was going to take that offer, and I kind of went with the deal as such. But then those two gentlemen went into Nama, not because of the pubs. They went down for, they own lots of land in London and the west of Ireland, whatever. So then Nama was my landlord.
Oh my goodness!
And that's when I ended up getting out on my own. So it wasn't a decision. Let's go out on my own. It sort of just ended up that way.
So did you feel at that stage you'd no other choice?
Well, it's not that I had no other choice. By that stage, I was completely enmeshed in the hospitality industry. In my time at Guinness, both in the loans department and in the sales role, I'd always loved pubs, but I got to meet so many people, and I advised so many people across the north, and opening pubs and helped them with loans to get their businesses going. And by that stage, it was what I knew. I knew pubs, I knew how they worked, and I was probably, whilst I knew industry, I didn't have the passion for any other industry at the time, so it was always going to be hospitality from then on.
Gosh, and then if you look at the last period that we've been through, hospitality really got it very, very tough. Do you think it's going to come back with some scars and wounds, but do you think it'll be back as vibrantly as before?
There'll always be hospitality. It's been hospitality back to the Roman times. People want to be with people, and that's the one thing we learned over COVID. Perhaps before, restaurants and pubs were taken a bit for granted, but when you couldn't go to the restaurant for a meal, or you couldn't go out to the pub to meet your friends, I think people realised just how important it was. So it'll be there, but it'll never be the same again. But it always evolves.
Okay, but I got that too. I missed the social side.
Yeah.
I love going out to restaurants, etc. But staff. That was the issue. How did you look after your staff, and did you lose a lot of people?
Well, it was very worrying, because at the very start, we could see it coming. We could see COVID coming. We knew there was lockdowns coming, but the government was very slow at coming forward of what they were actually going to do. And I remember Boris Johnson stood up a few nights before St. Patrick's Day 2 years ago and told people, don't go to pubs and restaurants. And overnight, our business just dropped. And so the next day, at that stage, there was no support. But I knew, if I didn't take action, we had 10 days to survive with the cash we had. So I went in the next day and I made everybody redundant except my key managers.
And how many staff were we talking at this stage?
100 people.
Oh my word.
And I did it for two reasons. One, because I didn't want to leave it to the weekend, because I wanted them to have an opportunity to go to the job office and whatever and get themselves sorted out.
What was going through your mind at that time?
It was always about the staff. What was best for the staff? They knew the story was coming, so rather than stress them out, just do it, get it done. I didn't sleep the night before, but I just got it done. And then 2 days later, he announced that he was going to introduce furlough. So then we were able to re-employ all the staff and put everybody in furlough. So that was good. So that got us through the first lockdown. The second lockdown was a bit more difficult because we had to pay, an element of their pay. And so you could just see the cash draining away. But look, we got through it, and I've lost some staff, not as many as some people, but we have lost some staff. And with hindsight, furlough could have been managed in a better way, because what happened was people were allowed to get all their jobs. So some people got the furlough, then they got another job, then they didn't come back.
Hindsight's a wonderful thing.
Yeah.
Probably a much better way to do everything. Were you surprised even though when furlough appeared initially?
We were totally shocked by the size of it, and to be honest, it was more than we could ever have hoped for at the time. I was part of a negotiating team with Hospitality Ulster, meeting government ministers and trying to argue for support for the industry, and what we ended up with was a lot better than what we thought we were going to get. So once that came, I knew we could get through. I knew our business could get through, because our size, when they talked about social distancing, our pubs luckily are quite big. So even with social distancing, we could get in a reasonable number of people. So when in those short periods when we were allowed to open, we were able to make some reasonable money, and that kept us going. So we're in a worse place than what we were before it started, but we're still here.
You're optimistic.
Yeah, we're optimistic.
And would you say that's been the biggest challenge you've had to overcome to date?
No, to be honest, the biggest challenge was actually the financial crisis.
Right.
That was worse, because at least with COVID, you understood what was going on, and you felt as if everybody was in it together. With the financial crisis, I just didn't get it. I could see banks getting bailed out, and banks basically stealing people's businesses, and you're going, what is going on here? And there was nowhere to turn. This is wrong, and there was nowhere to go to get support. So any help you needed, it wasn't there. So it was a learning for me. I would have always said to people in years gone by, to be successful in business, you need a good accountant, a good solicitor, and a good bank manager. I'm not so sure about the bank manager anymore.
Right, so you've had your fingers burned a few times, and you've learned a lot of lessons along the way. This podcast is sponsored by Granite Legal Services, a niche business and immigration law practice located in the heart of Newry City. Granite Legal Services provides legal advice to both individuals and companies alike across a wide range of industries, from employment, commercial or corporate law matters to immigration law. Granite Legal Services focuses on providing legally sound, practical advice to its clients. To get in touch, visit www.granitelegalservices.co.uk or contact 028 3026 2200. What would you say are the secrets then to running a great bar and restaurant or hospitality premises?
Well, the first thing in any restaurant or bar, and indeed in any business, is get the right people around you. There's a restaurateur in New York called Danny Meyer. He owns a lot of restaurants in New York. They're all different. And he has a saying, people will come for what they see. They'll return for how they're made to feel. And I think that just sort of encapsulates what hospitality is about. So it's if people are made to feel welcome and made to feel special, then they'll return. So the first thing is get the right people around you. Make sure that they understand how important they are to the business. So share as much information as you can with them, and make them understand, that even if they're, whatever the role is, how it fits in, and if you can get that team ethic going, then you've got a good chance. Outside of that, it's making sure you're well planned. It's get all the basics right, of course. But Horatio Todd's, for example, was a pub that we created in East Belfast, and before we did that, we analysed the population, we analysed what they worked at, and we created the pub for what we thought the people would want. So. To be successful in this, I think you can't own a pub. The pub or the restaurant belongs to the people who frequent it, if that makes sense.
Yeah, I understand.
So you have to organise it for them. If they're enjoying it, then you've got it right. But to try and do a pub for something that you like mightn't work.
And in terms of which of these restaurants would be on your doorstep, where you felt that you understood the nature of the area and the people?
Well, none of the three are on my doorstep, because I'm in Carryduff, is where I live now. I'm originally from Downpatrick, but I live in Carryduff now. So none of them are actually on my doorstep. But as I said, we sort of understood what, we studied the area first of all in East Belfast, the centre of the city. Obviously, I understand because I've worked in it, and it changes. And I'm originally from Downpatrick, so I've a bit of an idea there. Although Denver's is not just about being a local place in Downpatrick. What we're trying to do is turn it into a tourist destination because of its age and because of the history. And
it dates back to 1642, as we said in the introduction, and you've got your 15 ensuite rooms now.
Yeah, I read in a magazine a few years ago, we had only 6 rooms in Denver's, and then I read in a magazine about this initiative in Boyle and Roscommon, where they wanted to create a cluster hotel. And the idea was to find all the rooms in the town and turn them into hotel quality. And I thought, that's a good idea. So I phoned the council, and they said, well, that's not really us. And then let's invest in I. So I phoned them, and they said, that's not really us. It's a tourist board. So I phoned the tourist board and they said that's not really us.
No.
So I phoned John Magorian, who's the head of the tourist board. I thought, what the hell? And
sort it out.
John thought it was a great idea.
Yeah.
My fear was that we could do, and I said, look, will we get graded or will we be acceptable to you if we can do this? And he said yes. So I then found a building that was owned by the local property trust, and their role is to find endangered buildings in the heritage area and find a commercial use. So together we turned the building 70 metres from Denver's into additional hotel bedrooms, and that's changed it now. So Denver's now is an accommodation venue with a bar and restaurant, where before it was a bar and restaurant with rooms, if that makes sense.
Yeah.
So we've now got enough rooms to actually attract tour operators in, and that's what I'm currently working on.
And very excited by, I can tell.
Yeah, it's interesting because it's Downpatrick's a lovely town. It's never anywhere for tourists to stay. So it's nice to be able to do something, and because it's right in the centre of the town, my hope is the whole town will benefit. For years people have been trying to build a hotel on the outskirts, but that's not going to benefit the town. This will benefit the town because if people come out the front door, they're on the main street. So.
And this was an area that you did know and you knew what it needed, and is it important to you to have that connection with Downpatrick? Do you feel very proud of Downpatrick?
Well, I'm from Downpatrick, so I'm proud of it, yeah. But I'm proud of all three bars. As I said, Horatio's was one that didn't exist, and even the name, finding the name was interesting. And then
tell me about that.
Well, to be honest, I was looking for the name of a strong woman who was historically connected to Ballyhackamore. So we were reading through old newspapers, and we were in the Linden Hall Library and things, and my marketing girl came across the name Horatio Todd. And he was the first chairman of the Northern Ireland Pharmaceutical Society, and a bit of a character. He made his own perfumes, which he sent to the Queen, or the Queen Mother as we would have known her, and she sent him a letter back, and then he sold the perfumes as being worn by the Queen and things. So I just thought, what a wonderful name.
That's fantastic, and what a wonderful backstory.
And there was a backstory, so it gave us something to hang our hat on as our marketing launch. And so
very exciting. So you've the 4 different premises. Which one was first?
Horatio Todd's was first, which is why it's called the group.
Yes.
Then the Northern Wig was bought from Nama. As I told you, they all end up in Nama, so we managed to buy that from Nama, and then we bought Denver's, and then we have our 4th business, which is Horatio Taverns. That's outside bars. So that's where we do bars at the Balmoral Show. For example, we did the bar here on Friday night at the market. In Newry.
We were just talking about that in a previous episode. You'll have to tune in to that one. But that kind of revival of street food, of people gathering. Again, lockdown's done strange things to people, but we've all craved that sense of community. Yeah. And the outdoor experience is definitely something that, if you've the right coat, you're grand and you love that. But is this something that you'd be wanting to do prior to lockdown, or is this something that has been an opportunity for you? It's
something that it sort of came about mainly during the financial crisis. As I told you, it was very, very difficult at that time to get any sort of support, and so we were looking for other ways to raise cash, and there were more and more of these sort of event bars. So we tendered for a few, and the big one we got was the Balmoral Show, which was great. And Rhonda, who's the director up there, has been wonderful to us over the last number of years. But based on that, then our reputation grew. So we've got quite a few now. It's a business in its own right. And I think at the last count we've at least 100 events this summer to do.
Gosh, really? So everybody's back out again, and all the events. Everybody has been stuck for 2 years, and we're loving it now.
Yeah, and it's great to see. It's great to see people back. And it was lovely, actually, whenever we were closed to open up. Although it's interesting, the really interesting thing, Sarah, was the team coming back. It was a bit like a football team that hadn't played in 3 months. They'd lost their touch, they couldn't control the ball.
They were dropping drinks everywhere, were they?
Yeah, we had to slow everything down. We even had to change the menus to make sure, let's just wait until we get back up to speed, which I didn't foresee,
No, that's really interesting. I haven't heard anybody else say. No, it totally makes sense, and you just need time to get back up to speed. Do you think that people want to get back up to the speed that they were at before?
It is different. It's difficult at the minute in terms of staff. So we've struggled, and
Recruitment's a massive issue.
Recruitment's massive, but in a way it's been an opportunity. I get speaking, myself and the manager Kieran and Horatio Todds, we were speaking one day, and every job we advertised, the only people we were getting were young people and a lack of experience. So we thought, you know what, if you can't win the race you're in, start another race. So if we're only getting young people, how do we fast track them? And so we introduced a scheme where which we called, paid for the job and not your age. So as you know, the minimum wage is different levels at different age groups.
Yeah.
So what we said was, come and join us, do some online training. We've got these training modules. Do some online training, do your in-house training, and every quarter we'll give you a review, and as you're progressing, we'll give you a pay rise. And by the end of the first year, you will be getting paid for the job, as opposed to your age. So
that's brilliant.
And they bought into it. The kids have really enjoyed it, and they've stepped up to the mark, and they've been wonderful. And the fact that they've got a wee bit of control of their own job. So it was an initiative that we sort of thought would be a good idea, and it's worked well for us.
Well, it's that incentive, isn't it, to keep going and improve and get more money, and
but more than that, it's them feeling worth.
Yeah.
Them feeling worth and valued, and us telling them, look, this is what we're doing and this is why we're doing it, and you are going to be a valuable member of our team quicker than you might normally have been.
Do you feel that you've changed as a leader and a boss since the pandemic? Do you realise now how important that is, that the young people need to buy into you, buy into your values, buy into your ethos?
To be honest, probably I haven't changed as a boss, but what I have realised is a lot of those things were sort of set to the side. I've always been the same in terms of understanding. It's a people game. You need to develop your people. You need to make them feel involved. I've always known that, but the last 2 years has all been about cash flow. It's all been about just let's keep the costs down, let's make sure we've enough cash to keep everybody employed. Yeah. Let's not waste money. So everything was completely different, and all the training and all the other stuff that is so essential was all put in the back burner. But we've just kind of kicked that off again now, and we've started we've had guys out doing their wine training recently. We've had we've other training sessions coming up. We've our long service awards dinner, which we haven't done in 3 years, coming up, which is where we invite everybody who's done 5, 10, 15 or whatever years to come to a dinner. We haven't done that for a couple of years, so we're going to do that now. So it's getting back to that. All those great things were shelved for necessity, because the only thing that mattered was keeping enough cash to get through, because nothing else counted except cash.
Well, I suppose when you've been faced with a situation where you had to let every single member of staff go at one point, you know what that's like. So getting it right going forward, did you think about, I'm now running sort of 4 businesses here. Do I need that many? Should I be looking after this many people?
Not really. No, it's all about doing what's right for the business, and as I said to you, surround yourself by good people. And another saying is, if you want to know what excellence is, ask your excellent people, which I like.
I like that
so
too.
I've got people working with me who are better at some things than I am. So I don't have to think about everything. And it's just making sure that I'm there to support them and make sure that they've got the support they've got, or that they need, and that's what it's about.
And you're learning from them as well.
Yeah, but if you employ a manager, I think a lot of people make a mistake. They employ a manager, but then they don't let them manage. I think, why employ a manager if you don't want them to manage? So let them manage it. Yes, I'll have my say, and we'll have our debates, and there's some things I'll want to do that won't get done because they won't see it. But we'll get there in the end. We'll work together and we'll get there. So
I think it's brilliant. I think that a lot of people listening to this today will think, yeah, that's me. I micromanage them all. So actually just stepping back and I suppose trusting that you've brought this person in. And as you say, chipping in when you need to, but also saying, right, you're right.
But that's kind of my background. You see, my background isn't really in pubs, as you know.
Yeah.
It came through blue chip companies, and it like particularly in Guinness when the sales force, there was 50, 60 sales guys. So, you can't micromanage. You have to sort of put systems in place. You have to make sure they're trained. You have to make sure that they're very clear on what it is they have to achieve. So you have to structure your business in a way that people are delivering on things that are actually going to count. So even when I took over as sales director in Guinness, the first thing I had to do was restructure the sales force to make it work in a way that was more effective, because the industry had changed.
So you had to make those tough calls and do the difficult things to get to where you needed to be.
Yeah, but you have to. I remember, and this was a lesson for me. At one stage, we had a young chap who worked for us, and a lovely guy, and he kept applying for supervisors' jobs, and he never got them. And part of the reason was because he was always talking, right? But he was good. And then he decided he was going to move on somewhere else. And I went to speak to him and said to him, look, I should have got involved here, but I will get involved now. He said, no, look, it's fine. He says, I'm moving on. He says, but can I tell you something? And I said, what? He said, I've worked here for 3 years. Nobody's ever been sacked. He said, and there are people here who aren't good enough to work with me. And the lesson was, he wasn't complaining about those people. He was complaining about me and the other managers not taking action. And I learned from that.
Gosh.
You know, it was a big lesson.
So what happened to him?
He did move on, and he's done well. He is. I met him recently. He was managing a restaurant in County Down, and he's still a great guy.
Still talking?
Oh yeah, I mean, we're still talking. You know, I should have got involved probably more quicker.
But you learned from that.
I learned from his.
And you listened.
Yeah, but it's what I meant whenever, you know, you talk to people and you will learn from people. Like I was running the company and he was just a waiter, but I still learned from him.
And then people listening to this then say, okay, so if somebody's not, you know, pulling their weight, if they are, you know, just not delivering, underperforming, you know, if they were in a football team, they wouldn't be picked. They'd be on the bench, and that's a very expensive place to have them. Yeah. How do you have the difficult conversation? How do you do the, right, we need to talk here? Okay.
Well, performance reviews are important. And I say that, and I'm smiling as I say that, because in my time in Guinness, I never signed one. And the reason being, because all year I was told you're doing a great job, and then I would come to do my performance review and I got a 3 out of 5, and I would go, why am I only getting a 3? Oh no, but read the comments, that means you're good. But I also realised it meant that I didn't get the pay rise I was meant to get because I'm only getting a 3. But it meant that the conversation became a negative conversation.
Yeah.
And then I told you about this comment I read about, if you want to know what excellence is, ask your excellent people. So that's what we did. We went out and got our best barmen in and said, what do good barmen do? And they give us a list, a job profile of what good barmen do. Did the same with our waiters, same with our security staff. So now whenever we have a performance review, we sit down with the barman and say, here's what your peers say is really good, what good barmen do, where do you think you need development? And we have that conversation.
So that benchmarking is there. It's not coming from the top down. It's actually coming from somebody who's the top in their area or whatever. Yeah, but this is what good looks like.
This is what good looks like. And so it gives us some credibility, and you have the conversation. And then the only scores are you're developing very well, you're a very valuable member of our team, or you're not good enough to work with us. And when you hear that, most times people will either buck up or they'll move on.
And in terms of protecting employees, has that become something of an issue to say that to someone and then they maybe challenge? And, you know, is that an issue for employers at the minute?
No, not really. Not if you're open and honest and you have the evidence. You know, if you sit down and say, look, here's what I've seen you doing, and you know, you need to have the evidence. But don't get me wrong, it's not about getting rid of people. It's about trying to develop people.
So they get a second chance.
Oh no, everybody will get second, third, fourth chances. You know, like it's only sometimes, you know, people are in the wrong job. You know, that's sometimes, all it is. Yeah. Mm-hmm. You know, I had a manager once who worked for me, and it just wasn't going to work out. And I told him, and when I told him it wasn't working out, his comment to me was, "That's a weight on my shoulders."
Right, he couldn't make that choice to go probably because people get tied in. And we've talked a lot to people about, you know, that kind of rust out, that sort of people are just clocking in and clocking out, and the love and the purpose just isn't there.
It wasn't there, and he found a new career in a completely different type of industry, and he's doing really well.
You saved him from himself, really.
Yeah, you know, sometimes people just need to be told that. It's kind of tough love.
It's not working out here.
It's not a nice thing to do, don't get me wrong. Like before that conversation with that guy, I didn't sleep for 3 nights. And then he told me that was a weight on my shoulders, or his shoulders.
We should known that before. I would have had 3 nights sleep. But well, it sounds like you're not just going in there and hatchet man. It's totally something that you can't.
I couldn't.
These are all livelihoods and families,
we're a very flat organisation, and as I said to you, you know, we share information. Any of our staff could tell you how the pub's doing at any level. They'll know the figures. We share everything with them. You know, we try to create that team ethos, and most of my people have been with me a long time.
Is that the secret of your success, do you think?
I'm not sure. It works for me. It's my style. You know, you can only manage in your own style. I couldn't be I couldn't be the guy on the white horse at the front. Like, that's not me. I need to be in amongst the people.
Yeah. So in terms of like food, obviously everybody's really into food, and there's been such a revival, and we're inundated with Instagram posts and beautiful dishes everywhere. In terms of where you are with food, what about your chefs? How do you design your menus?
Okay, well, food's probably the biggest driver in all of our, well, except for Denver's now because it's accommodation. But food is the biggest driver. Each of the premises has their own head chef, and the head chef writes the menu. So we know what kind of style of food works in the three pubs, or what we think works in the three pubs. The chefs will write the menu, then we will critique the menu. Do you think you've got enough vegetarian, or is that priced high enough, or is that priced too high, or whatever the conversation might be. But it's a chef, if you, again, as I said, if you employ somebody like that, and the guys I have working for me at the minute are excellent, and they're passionate about their food. So I want them to be passionate about what's going out on the dish. I want them to be proud of what they're putting out, and so they have to own the menu.
And put their stamp on it.
It has to be their stamp, yeah. They have to own it, and they have to want to create it, and they have to develop it. Menus need to change, and more and more we need to be looking at local and all of those things.
Yeah, and you look at even the rise in vegan and vegetarian food, something that used to be literally there were one choice at the bottom of the menu, and now people are actively, even the meat eaters and the pescatarians out there, are wanting the healthy local produce and something different.
Correct, yeah.
Palates have changed.
Palates are changing all the time, yeah. So you have to be aware of that, and that's why you need somebody who's passionate, who's going to be keeping themselves up to date with what the trends are, and I really like chefs who like going out for meals. It's amazing the number of chefs who don't like going out for meals, but I
have no time to go out for meals even. But yes, that's really
even that's changed, the time thing. It was traditionally in the industry was you worked all the hours that you had to work. That's changed.
It was quite unhealthy, really, wasn't it?
Yeah, split shifts and things. We try to avoid that. People have to have a work-life balance.
Yeah.
They have to want to come into work. And they have
so
to
what way do you
it.
work it now, or is it an individual thing? Or
Well, it's basically trying to keep people to their 40 hours a week. Is what we try to do. There may be the odd time where somebody might be sick, and people will step up then.
Yeah.
And I've seen and it's great to have, sometimes this is where it's good to have more than one outlet. I've seen where we might have had a problem in an outlet, particularly with COVID there, you had a couple of people off, and people have stepped in from another restaurant to help out.
Gosh, that's really good, isn't it? That's a really good sign that things are working, and morale is good. And you'll need that to continue, I'd say, for a while longer. You've won many awards with your businesses over the years. Tell us about those.
Well, I suppose the best one ever, I'll tell you, I had a guy worked with me, he's retired now, called Jerry Vernon. And Jerry was in his 60s, and he had worked in the licence trade all his life. And there was a Barman of the Year, UK Barman of the Year, and we thought, we should enter Jerry. Now, usually it's won by some guy who can throw cocktail bottles in the air and stuff like this here, and we thought Jerry's been, he's been a great barman all his life, and he's the sort of guy would recognise a lady on her own and make sure she gets a seat and get her a newspaper and things. He had all of that. He was really he was just good. So we entered him in UK Barman of the Year. And we had to go over to London for it. But even the process was good, because one of the things was you had to, one of the questions on the way through, there were 5 stages before you got to the final awards now. And one of the questions was, tell us a bad customer story. And Jerry just went, no. Oh. I says, what do you mean, no? I'm not telling you a bad story about any customer. Oh. Men come into the pubs to get rid of their sorrows. I'm not telling you any bad stories. Oh. Well, tell us something, Jerry. We have to tell them some bad story. He says, well, there was a time I took the bomb out once. And I said, we've won.
Beat that.
Because I could just see all these judges sitting in London, with their bad stories. And Jerry's story was carrying a bomb out of a bar, So
love it.
So over we went. And I think there was 1,800 people at the dinner. And Damien on average was handing out the awards, and Jerry won it. So that was my favourite award.
Lovely. And how was Jerry? Did he love it?
Oh, he loved it.
Could he believe he'd won?
I don't think he believed it. I think Jerry just thought, sure, it's a trip to London, But he enjoyed it, and we all enjoyed it. We had 2 tables, and we took Jim McDowell with us as well.
For goodness' sake.
Because we thought, better have a journalist here so he'll have plenty of contacts.
Plenty for the Sunday World
that
then.
That was a nice award.
Oh, that was lovely. And there you go. You're sort of pleased for somebody else, and somebody like Jerry who really was doing the right thing all the way through, but didn't court the publicity or the limelight. And
Yeah.
but the story of the carrying the bomb, that did it. Absolutely.
I knew we'd
you
want
won,
it
Jerry.
at that.
So you love chefs who go out and eat.
Yeah.
Where do you love going to, or what do you love doing? Do you do a lot of travel and research to check out competition, or just learn from other experiences?
Not as much in recent years. I was in London a weekend, not last weekend, the weekend before, for the first time in about 3 years. So I haven't been able to do as much travelling, obviously. But yeah, I mean, it's actually, in some ways it's a good thing, some ways it's a bad thing, because you're always working.
You never stop judging.
So when I'm out with my wife, sometimes it doesn't go down well. What are you doing now? What are you looking at? Yeah. Can you not switch off just for one night?
I have a very good friend, and her family all come from the hospitality trade, and there's a whole load of them, and see, going out for a meal with them, it is a hoot. Honestly, it's like, I don't like this, and I don't like that. And that's, and I'm going, this is lovely, I'm out, this is great. But they're just, the attention to detail is quite pronounced, and getting it right. And we would do it this way. Yeah. Yeah,
you're always looking. Yeah.
You're always looking. In terms of signature drink, do you have a tipple that do you regularly go to?
Well, personally for me, it's a pint of Guinness. You'd not be surprised to hear that.
Yeah.
So it's a pint of Guinness, and I know a bit about wines. Never spirits. Very rarely ever go near spirits, but that's my.
You like
tipple.
your wine, and then how do you manage it? You've been doing this for such a long time now. Do you see yourself sort of stepping back a little? Like, you've got brilliant people, you've employed the right people. What would your normal day look like?
Right, the normal day is first thing I do in the morning, all the sales are through, so you have a look to see how the day before went. So they've come through during the night. So we see how that is to make sure that there's nothing's going wrong. It's checking into emails, and then it's just meetings after meetings.
Do you have a morning routine? Lots of people now we're talking to have their fitness or their something they like to do before the busyness of the day starts.
Not really, to be honest. I probably should have, but I don't rush into work because there's no point really, because of the traffic. So if I'm in for 9:30, I'm happy enough. But because I can do my emails at home, so I do emails at home before I go. Then I go into the office and then I go around. I don't be around the outlets every day. I don't need to check up on the guys, but I will be in the outlets, to meet the managers and we have our one-to-ones and things like that.
Do you tell them that you're coming?
Yeah, they would know I'm coming, and I would never speak. I never speak business to anybody except the managers, if that makes sense. So if I go in, unless something's really wrong, I'll talk to some of the staff, but the manager's the manager of the pub, and I want him to think it's his pub, so I only speak business to him. Or to her, so that's the way that works.
In a lot of the awards, I know I've kind of hosted a few awards, and there's always this mystery shopper element. Have you experienced that? Would you encourage that sort of thing where people drop by and?
Well, we would use mystery shoppers
right.
on occasions. Yeah, so we have done that in the past. Again, with COVID, that's all fallen away. But that would have been a normal thing to do. And we always employed a student who did more than mystery shopping. We had a student who was at college, and this was part of their year out, and they would have gone in and carried out a mystery shop, but not just on the customer experience. They went into every aspect of the business and carried out a quality audit, where the fridge is all the right temperature, was the food stored correctly. They checked everything. And
really important.
Every outlet gets that every month. And it's not to catch the guys out, it's just to make sure that we keep remembering all the basics that we have to do. So the student thing fell apart as well during COVID, but I have a chap doing that for me now. So not so much on the customer mystery shop side alone. We would do those sorts of audits that go behind the scenes as well as front of house. What
time do you switch off then at the end of the day?
I don't know if you do. Yeah, I'm sort of. I kind of need to cool my head at night, so I always read a little bit before I go to bed, just to cool my head down.
Fiction or?
It depends. I've always put 3 or 4 books beside the bed. I'll have one that's fiction, one that's maybe not fiction, and whatever. So 3 or 4 different types of books, and I always read something.
I have a question written down here. What do you like to do in your spare time? Does that exist?
Oh, yeah, I go to the theatre, I go to the cinema, I go walking. I used to play a bit of football, but I've got a bit of a knee injury. I'm tempted to try and come back. I was told not to play again because of the knee injury, but
and who do you play for?
Look, it was only in years gone by. I played soccer for Dramara. but more recent times it's just been five-a-sides with a lot of mates. But as I say, an old football injury, and I was told by the doctor not to play again, but it's tempting.
Hard to stay away. Well, he might come back. There might be another comeback for Stephen Magorrian.
Yeah, I'm not sure whether it's worth a comeback. A manager was asked once, the manager tomorrow was asked by one of my friends, is he any good? And after thinking for a while, he said he's enthusiastic.
I love that. Sounds like my school report. So what's next for you then, Stephen? Do you have an exit strategy?
Not really at the minute. No, not at the minute. What's next is at Horatio Todd's we've an office which is far too big for us above the bar, and we've now got planning permission to turn that into an extension for the bar. So we hope to extend up there at some stage. With the way things are, we're priced at the minute. I'm not sure when that's going to happen, but that's what we want to do there. So we've got plans to extend and put in the bar we want to put in is going to be slightly different than what we've currently got. So it's another offering to what Horatio Todd's is. Denver's, as I've said, we've just opened the new bedrooms.
An exciting summer ahead then.
Yeah, so it's trying to maximise that now with tourists and to get that as a destination. So I'm going to meet the bar that Tourism Northern Ireland are organising on the 29th of March, and that'll be the first time that I've been to that. I've been there virtually before, but not in person. So I have a number of appointments set up with a number of tour operators, and I'm hoping something will come out of that, and we'll start to bring tourism to St. Patrick's. That's what we're trying to do with Denver's. And then in Northern Wig, I've always felt we never got the coffee bar end of it right. So we'll have to work on that. So there's always something to do.
Still even the takeaway coffee business,
we've never really got that off the ground there. But just even the sit-in coffee bit, I think we could do it better.
And any plans to invest in a fifth bar and restaurant in the future?
Not at the minute. They're the big plans, is to invest in what we've got.
Yeah.
If they come along, that could make a massive change to ratios. I think it could be a big difference. And Denver's, it'll be a real change for Denver's, but it'll be good for St. Patrick's. So there's plenty to do there at the minute.
Plenty of exciting things. Now, the purpose, Stephen, of this podcast is to inspire existing business owners and ambitious entrepreneurs to grow their business by offering insight into the success of businesses such as the Horatio Group. But what advice would you give to people who may have a business idea but have no idea where to begin, or are unsure as to whether it's a risk worth taking?
Well, the big thing is, and this podcast will show you, business people are always prepared to help other business people. So ask, go and seek advice. Talk to somebody who you respect, run your idea past them. Talk to a number of people. Listen to what they tell you as well. They may not tell you what you want to hear, but seek advice. And if you're convinced after speaking to a number of people whom you respect that your idea is a good idea, then give it a go and see how it goes. Try and do it in a way that is as low a risk as possible. Decide what you're prepared to invest and give it a go. And if it works, it works. If it doesn't work, it doesn't. Move on. Not everything that I've touched has worked. There's been times I've had to say, I just can't do this. I sold just before lockdown. I sold Molly Brown's in Newton Ards, a lovely pub, but I just couldn't. I couldn't work it out in my own head. I couldn't get it to go. So the best thing to do was just to stop trying.
Just to let it go.
Just let it go.
So some things it's about knowing when to walk away if it's not working out. But
it's
better to try than have regrets.
It's better to try and have regrets. And once you've made a decision, another thing I was told once, I was offered a job in London at one stage before I took on the loans department. It was either go to London or take on the loans department in Northern Ireland in Guinness. And the guy in England, when I told him I was staying, said to me, look, nobody ever makes the wrong mistake, the wrong decision. You make the right decision at the time based on the facts you've got. Don't look back. Just forget about it. You made the right decision, move forward. And I thought that was good advice.
That is brilliant, isn't it? Because so much of life is about procrastination, but then rumination and agonising over whether it was the right or the wrong thing. Give it a go.
Give it a go. If it works, it works. If it doesn't, know to walk away and try something else.
Well, you've been an inspiration to so many, and thank you so much for telling us about your brilliant successes, the things that perhaps didn't work so well. You've been extremely honest and have probably helped an awful lot of people out there. Thank you so much, Stephen, for joining me today on the Public Eye podcast. What a fantastic
Thank you,
guest Stephen's been. A great one to finish season 8 with. We will be back very soon with season 9. So remember to subscribe to stay up to date on all new releases. See you soon. This podcast was recorded in Granite Podcast Studio. Interested in starting up your own podcast but don't know how? Granite Podcast Studio can help. Record your podcast in our state-of-the-art studio, which is based in the heart of Newry City. Our studio has cutting-edge and user-friendly technology and can seat up to 4 people. We also provide an editing service for our team using your guidance and editing notes to provide you with a flawless finished product, leaving your listeners wanting more. For more information on how you can get started, visit www.granitepodcaststudio.com.